Good afternoon, my name is Ben Rarick. I'm the Executive Director of the State Board of Education, and I want to talk to you for a couple of minutes about the State Board of Education's legislative priority around strengthening the 180-day instructional school year for students. As many of you know, the basic education statutes require that school districts offer 180 days of instruction for students. However, as many of you may have noticed, the number of late start, early release, or otherwise partial or half school days in school districts has increased over time. And the question we ask ourselves as a State Board of Education is, what is the school year calendar that best supports quality teaching and learning and best supports our efforts to get every student career and college ready by the time they exit the K-12 system? The problem of half and partial days has multiple dimensions. First, although statute does require 180 days of instruction, the law doesn't define a minimum school day. And what this means is that school days in which students come in the morning and leave shortly after lunch, for example, count the same as a full instructional day for the purposes of determining compliance with that 180-day requirement. But secondly, what we have found is that as the state has pursued more educational reform programs, school districts have found their professional development needs increasing. But this is happening at the same time that dedicated funding for professional development for public schools has been cut at the state level. Absent that dedicated funding, school districts have gradually essentially had to try to meet their professional development needs within the confines of the 180-day school calendar. And this leads to late starts or early release days, which almost universally are used for the purpose of professional development. We don't collect data about half and partial school days at the state level, in part because they're not illegal. But we do believe a few things to be true about them anecdotally. First of all, we believe that student attendance is lower on late start and early release days. And this stands to reason because those days are not typical days structurally for a typical family, particularly if the mother and father are working adults. But secondly, we also believe that it is more difficult to maintain instructional continuity on a late start or early release day. You either have to cover the same amount of content with less time in each area, or you have to sacrifice some section of the content you were otherwise going to cover. But one way or another, instructional continuity is being sacrificed. So what is the solution to this problem? The State Board of Education will call on the legislature to do two things. First, it would ask the legislature to impose some limit on the number of late start and early release days that school districts can have in their locally adopted school calendar. But secondly, and equally as importantly, we will call on the legislature to fund professional development days so that school districts can provide professional development for their staff for the education reform programs that the state wishes to pursue, rather than performing that professional development at the expense of instructional time for students within the 180-day calendar. Thank you for your time.